Hi everyone, Dr. Nicole Lepera, the holistic psychologist here. So today's video is really important because it is on the concept of selfishness. A lot of you listening have grown up or have conditioning around this idea of what is selfish and what isn't selfish. And in my opinion, most of us are throwing things in this selfish category that are actually important acts of self-care that allow us to show up as our best self in our relationships. So a lot of us have been told that putting ourselves first, that putting our needs first, that making choices that are in our best interest are selfish. So what we do before we know it is we begin to show up for other people, for things outside of ourselves before we show up for ourselves first. And the problem with this is over time, this leads to many things that a lot of you listening are probably struggling with, such as burnout, endlessly feeling exhausted, never feeling like you have time for yourself or for what's important to you. In time and relationships, this translates to resentment. Before we know it, we get so upset at everyone that we're showing up for, and in a sense, we blame them for us constantly showing up for them before we show up for ourselves. And that can kill a relationship. So I want to assure each and every one of you listening that it is not selfish to want time periods where you just don't have plans or you don't have obligations or you can just be. I've worked with so many clients whose months are planned out in advance. They know exactly, who they're seeing Saturday and Sunday, and plans are great. I understand that a lot of us live busy lives, and to share space with the people that we want to share space with, we do need to have plans. But what I come to see is everything is planned. There are obligations that we have, lists of obligations that just color our entire social calendar. And I'm here to assure you, it is okay to rein it in, not to have every moment of your free time planned with someone else. It's okay to have a morning or an afternoon where you just don't have plans and you wake up and you see how you feel and you take the day based on how you feel. I also want to assure you, it is not selfish to prioritize your happiness. Now, here's a subjective word. Whatever happiness means for you, it's okay to make choices based on what you're going to do in any given day or how you're going to spend your time or not spend your time that allow you to feel some version of your own happiness. That is not selfish. That is actually incredibly important that your happiness factors in somewhere in how you spend your time or in your relationships. I assure each and every one of you listening, that it is not selfish to say no to things that feel draining. No is one of the hardest words I've had to ever learn to speak because I am someone who endlessly showed up for everyone around me. And as I started to become more and more connected to myself, I became more and more connected to how exhausted I felt doing that. So I started to realize and I started to be able to differentiate the things that were making me feel more exhausted, and learning how to say no in those areas was incredibly important. So I assure you, if you know the areas that are causing you that drain, practice saying no to one, suggestion or one offering or one invite with that one friend that you always leave feeling so drained. Just begin to practice saying no. If you're listening and you don't know exactly what's causing you to feel so drained, begin to watch, begin to observe, find that list of the things that are a little bit more draining than you would like them to be and begin to practice saying no. It's not selfish. It is also not selfish to change your mind. This goes back to, I used to be an endless planner. All of my weekends were planned weeks in advance because the idea of not having plans for me was really uncomfortable. And what would happen, I came to find out, I would make a plan on Tuesday for Saturday, and by Saturday, the last thing I wanted to do was that plan I made on Tuesday. How do I know how I'm going to feel on Saturday? So coming to that awareness that it's okay that what I thought I was going to want to do a week ago isn't what I actually want to do today. It's okay, and it's not selfish to change your mind. It is also not selfish to have boundaries, meaning limits that might be different than the limits of those around you. limits around how I spend time with my physical body, how much space my physical body needs. Boundaries around, again, emotions, how much time, how much energy I'm investing. It's okay to set a limit and to begin to say no when you are going outside of those boundaries in a way that doesn't feel good for you. It is not selfish. It is also not selfish to reevaluate relationships that are chaotic, that are draining, that are stressful, that just aren't working for you. Over my healing journey, I've had to reevaluate so many relationships. As I began to do all of these steps to understand I could change my mind, to begin to say no, to tune into how I feel when I'm relating with other people, I had to reevaluate a lot of my relationships. I started to show up differently or not at all in a lot of long-term relationships because they just weren't working for me anymore. And that is not selfish. It's also not selfish to have hobbies and interests that other people don't get or don't understand or that aren't into. This connects with number one. If you don't know what your hobbies and interests are, just carve out some time to explore yourself, to see what makes you feel good, to see how you like to spend your time. At the end of that exploration, you might find that you have some interests that no one gets, and that's okay. It is not selfish to pursue time and interests that people might not be interested in. It is not selfish. So those of you listening, I hope these are helpful reminders that I want to offer you today. We really need to start to rethink this concept of selfishness because, like I said, as we begin to prioritize ourselves, to have boundaries, to say no, to tune into how I feel, to explore what makes me feel good, I set myself up to decrease resentment in my relationships. I set myself up to show up in my relationships as the authentic me and to have more fulfilling relationships overall. So I hope these reminders were helpful for you today.